Hello and welcome to Co-ople Mode, a couple's opinion on gaming. I'm Matt.
I'm Rose.
And welcome from the rabbit-infested space waste of Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. After you've headshotted enough rabbits, you ready to move on to the next thing?
Nope. I'm going to play more Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope for 2 more weeks. Yeah. I'm going to finish it.
And then jam this game in right at the end?
No. We'll just skip this one.
All right. It's our Mario plus Rabbids podcast. Let's get in.
I think I'm scared because I saw you play, what was it, Baldur's Gate or something last night?
Yeah, that's what I was playing last night, Baldur's Gate 3.
I don't want to do that.
It's getting close to full release date, and I was like, I wanted to see what changes they've made since I've last played it. And it's kind of
like you were making a whole new character.
Yeah, I was, because my old saves are gone.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, certain times when versions updated for that, because it's an early access game, the save files won't always transfer over. I think that's just how long it's been since I played it.
Wow.
But it was kind of interesting to see some slight changes to the beginning of the game that was made since I last played it. Mm-hmm. Like some things get moved around a little bit, and it is really interesting and a lot of fun. It's basically Dungeons and Dragons 5e, the video game. And
sounds pretty cool.
It's pretty darn cool. So I'm excited for it to fully release, and then you get all the races and all the classes. So because they still don't have everything on the early access yet.
I did see they just added bards, right?
Yeah, yep. Bards just got added. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna play a monk. Monk's not out yet. It's like, dang it. But that's the thing that happens. You get early access, you don't get everything. So that's the way it works sometimes. Well, yeah, it's not Baldur's Gate. And so I had, I don't know, I guess a reminder is you missed out on a lot of games on a certain Nintendo system, and you need to go back and play some of those games. See, she skipped the console generation called the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the SNES.
I think that's fine.
No, it is not fine. It is absolutely not fine. Some of the best games and the start of some of the best games came on this console.
I disagree.
You ready to hear? You ready? You ready?
Yeah.
You're going to play Donkey Kong Country.
Ooh.
The original Donkey Kong Country on Super NES. Because you love Donkey Kong 64 so much. And it's this is where this iteration of Donkey Kong essentially started.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Hey, Nintendo, by the way, again, where in the heck is Donkey Kong 64 for the 64 emulator on the Switch? Why is that game not on there?
Well, you got to think.
No, there's no excuses. Like when you think of the N64 and the best games that were on there, why in the heck is Donkey Kong 64? I would put Donkey Kong 64 on there before Yoshi's Story. And I beat Yoshi's Story. But come on, Donkey Kong 64 is the best.
It's really good. I'm pretty sure it's copyright things going on with that.
It's crazy that Pilot Wing 64 is on there, but Donkey Kong isn't.
I think we'll touch up on that later in this episode. We'll talk about some things that has happened.
It's nuts. It's bananas.
It's bananas. Oh my goodness. So Donkey Kong Country was originally released November of 1994, obviously published by Nintendo, but developed by Rare, who have made games you might recognize such as Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye 64, Conker, and most recently, Sea of Thieves is the one they've been working on. Yep. That's a Rare game. Now, this game came out before Metacritic was a thing. I mean, honestly, before the internet was much of a thing.
Yep.
So the lowest review scores I could find was 4 out of 5 stars and 90 out of 100. Everything else at the time was giving it perfect scores or around 97 out of 100 or in that vein. That was the lowest stuff I could find. People love this game. It ended up being the 3rd best-selling game on the SNES of all time, with a final tally at 9.3 million.
Wow.
Yep. You want to know the 2 games that beat it out? At number 2 was Super Mario All-Stars. That had over 10.5 million copies sold. And Super Mario World was at number 1 with over 20.6 million copies sold.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm going to say this afterwards. All 3 of these games were pack-in titles at one point. And that meant that if you bought the Super Nintendo, you would get this game with it, because that's how they moved consoles a lot. I mean, they still do that now, right? You can get God of War Ragnarok with the PS5. So that's part of the reason why these had such high numbers, but also, like, if you were waiting to buy a console, buy it with this game that everyone's excited about, right? Makes sense. At the time, Donkey Kong Country set the record for the fastest selling video game. When it first came out, it sold over 500,000 copies within a week, and the sales reached 1 million copies in the US alone in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So a cool little fun fact. In its second week on sale in the US, the game grossed $15 million US, outpacing that week's highest grossing film, which grossed $11.5 million.
Oh, what was that film?
The Santa Claus. The Santa Claus.
Oh, my goodness.
With Tim Allen. Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought that was just a fun little fact.
Yes.
Oh,
so funny.
So, yeah.
People like a big monkey better than Tim Allen.
Yeah, they like the big monkey better than Tim Allen. So it was cool. So in April of 1995, following the huge success of Donkey Kong Country, Nintendo actually purchased a 25% stake in Rare, which they eventually increased to 49%. So they own 49% of the company. Rare was the first non-Japanese studio ever to enter this kind of relationship with Nintendo, making them a second-party developer.
Okay.
So obviously first party is Nintendo makes Nintendo games.
Right.
Microsoft makes Microsoft games. That's first party, right? And third party is when anybody else is making games for your company. But there is second party, which is like Rare, that usually the main company owns some stake and they make special deals with that company to make games for their console exclusively, or like they'll help publish all their games for their console and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's kind of a cool little fun fact that Rare, they gave Rare this chance to work with Donkey Kong, which is one of their original IPs, and they made this really fun game, and it was so popular, like, you know what, you're worth working with. And it really has worked out. I mean, they made so many good games that you remember, especially on the 64, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, GoldenEye. Jeez.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
know.
heavy hitter right there.
That was a huge thing. Anybody who grew up in the 64 generation remembers hours and hours of playing GoldenEye. But like some of that reason they've had such of those good 64 games was Rare was one of the first developers to even receive the Nintendo 64 development kits because of their relationship with Nintendo.
So they knew how to make games for the 64.
Yeah, so they had
that makes sense.
They had the development kit so much longer than a lot of other people. They had the time to really work with it and see what they could do with it, right? So I mean, like getting those development kits makes a big deal.
Yeah.
In 2002, Rare was acquired by Microsoft. Microsoft bought Rare.
Really?
So that was where that switch happened, but
that's why I don't have Donkey Kong 64.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, Nintendo has the Donkey Kong rights, but Rare did have some of the rights, I think, for 64. And so I wonder if there's a bit of a weird
Microsoft,
mix-up
you're
there.
real nice. Come on, you'll work with them, right? They're super nice.
I'm sure they would. I think that it's not always that these companies don't want this stuff to happen. It's just that there's all that legalese stuff to make happen sometimes. So is it really worth it? And I think
it's worth it to me.
I know. I'm pretty sure Nintendo's going to get Donkey Kong 64 out there. Like, just for example, we heard about the Super Mario RPG remake that's happening.
Yes.
Which is huge because that was originally made by Squaresoft before they were Square Enix. And, like, I really hope that, like, seeing stuff like that happen after so many years, like, gives me hope that most of these guys can work together to make something for us consumers that we enjoy.
And you would think, because you mentioned how high the sales are for that game already just for pre-order.
Yeah, I saw an article that said Amazon, Super Mario RPG is the best-selling game on Amazon right now, beating out everybody else.
That should be a motivator for them.
If that doesn't tell people like, hey, we want this stuff, which reminds me of something else, Sony, why haven't you made a Legend of Dragoon remake? Why haven't you done this? We've been asking for it for 1 billion years. Everybody wants it so bad. And look at how Nintendo beat you to the punch. They made Super Mario RPG. But hopefully that'll kick them in gear. They're like, oh yeah, maybe we could make some money off this. Okay.
Sony doesn't like making money or giving people what they want, it seems like.
I don't know. They like making money, but I don't know about giving people what they want. Okay, my vent is over. I'm over it. I'm moving on. So Rare saying when they made Donkey Kong Country that they did draw inspiration from the Super Mario series. They actually cite Super Mario Bros. 3 as their primary influence on their level design. They wanted to make this game so it would like flow seamlessly as you play the game. Like the objects would time right all the time. And one of the creators said that although the concept of speedrunning wasn't like existing at the time,
right,
that's kind of how this game is designed. And it really is. And when you play this game, you realize how everything is arranged. So anytime you go past an obstacle, the next thing is lined up ready for you to go. So like when ropes are swinging, as soon as that rope, you get to that point, that rope will come into frame. So if you keep moving, you can grab that rope right away. It's not like I have to stop and wait. It's always like if you keep going, everything will time up for you perfect.
Beautiful work.
Yeah, very good level design. And like that, I remember, like I noticed that back when I played. Like I have a lot of love for this game. I played this game a lot back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I've even been playing it recently, and it's like, man, this game is still just fun. And sometimes hard, for sure, but still really fun. And like that timing, like I was like, man, everything always times up perfect. And that's so nice because I don't have to feel like you interrupt yourself. Like,
yeah,
people who are super good at Sonic the Hedgehog can do this, but you have to know the level.
Right.
If you don't know the level, you're this super fast hedgehog, and then you got to stop and like, okay, where am I going? And like that sucks when it stops you from feeling fast. But like,
because the whole point of Sonic is to feel fast.
To go fast. That's my only qualm about the old Sonic games is like, you really got to kind of play them a lot. And then once you do, you can really just feel like a badass. Like you watch someone really good at it burn through, it's insane. So back when Rare made Donkey Kong Country, there wasn't really the established universe that we have now, right? So Rare actually got permission to expand it with characters. So that's where Diddy Kong came into play.
Yeah.
Because originally you go back and you play Donkey Kong and there's Donkey Kong Jr., right?
Yes.
And so they kind of made a Donkey Kong Jr., but they changed him to this little like spider monkey that Diddy is, right?
Diddy Kong.
And
he's so cute.
When Rare brought this up to Nintendo, they're like, okay, that can't be Donkey Kong Jr. That won't work. You know,
it doesn't work canonically.
Yeah, so they're like,
he has no diaper.
You got to make him a new character, call him something else, and so that's where Diddy Kong essentially came from. But the other reason is they treat him like a power-up. You play Mario games, you get the mushroom power-up, right?
Yeah.
You got one hit, you shrink back down, but you're not done with the level. Well, in Donkey Kong Country, you're just Donkey Kong. You open up the DK barrel, you get Diddy Kong. Oh, you get hit as Donkey Kong. Guess what? You get to play as Diddy Kong. Okay. So that's like the mushroom power-up until you get the next DK barrel. That's like your little power-up buffer. And it's funny to see there's different interactions depending on who you are. Like Diddy Kong has a little more speed to him, but Donkey Kong can do like the ground pound. You can find like little secret bananas in certain areas, and like big enemies that Donkey Kong can knock out by jumping out, Diddy Kong can't. But Diddy Kong also holds the barrel like right in front of him so you can just walk into someone. Donkey Kong holds it above his head. You got to toss it at the right time or you'll get hit by an enemy. Like there's these little differences between the two that, I mean, as a kid, you're like, oh, I want to play Diddy Kong. He's so fast and quick. Or somebody, I want to be Donkey Kong. He's strong. I can do a ground pound. Like it really made these characters feel a little more unique. And even at this early stage, it just was so cool. Even they even added more characters into the game. So you got Cranky Kong.
Cranky Kong's in this one?
Yeah, Cranky Kong is originally in this. So he's like always in Cranky's shack, and he gives you like little hints. He'll talk about, like, if you listen to him, he'll give you hints to like secret areas sometimes. Like, oh, if you go to this level and you do this, you might find a secret bonus barrel, or but then he always like has like smart ass comments he says about other game, like, oh, in my time, and he's always crabby. Essentially, in the lore, Rare never said this to Nintendo, but they intended Cranky Kong to be the original Donkey Kong, because the original Donkey Kong in the games was kind of a shit, stealing a girl, running up, throwing barrels, right? So Cranky Kong is kind of a shit. But that's kind of like in their lore.
Donkey Kong in his old age?
The original Donkey Kong in his old age is who Cranky Kong is. Funny. Yeah, that's that's how they do. But they didn't want to like officially say anything because they were afraid Nintendo would just take that out. But in the instruction manual, it does say that. They printed it. It says Cranky Kong was the original Donkey Kong. Then they added
second generation Donkey Kong is much nicer.
Yeah, there's Candy Kong, the girl one, who is at the save points. You go to a save point and that'll save your game. That's how you used to do it.
Yeah.
So you had to play so many levels to get to the save point. And then there was I'm forgetting his name. He's like the cool Kong. I can't believe it. I don't have his name written down, and I can't believe I forgot. But basically, he holds this little like airplane barrel stand, and he will let you go back to old levels if you want to.
He wears sunglasses?
Yeah.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, he wears sunglasses. He's always got a surfboard. I know.
I can picture it.
Right? You can picture him, and I can't believe I can't think of his name. Okay, hold on. Find out for me. We got it. Funky Kong. Yeah.
I was like, there's Lanky, there's Tiny.
Yeah, there's so many.
Funky Kong plays like him and Candy Kong play a smaller part in Donkey Kong 64. Like, I think Candy Kong does the weapon shop, or maybe it's Funky Kong. It's been so long now.
I think it's Funky Kong who does the weapon shop. Funky Kong does the weapons.
Candy Kong does something else in the game, but it's like a side thing.
Yeah, little side missions or
main
something.
Main characters that you play, like Tiny or Lanky or Chunky Kong.
Chunky.
Oh, I just want to play Donkey Kong 64 so bad right now.
So one of the interesting things is the main enemies, the Kremlings, these alligator creatures, were actually from a scrapped Rare game.
Oh, really?
They were going to make this game, and they reused them as these enemies in Donkey Kong, and it worked out really well. Mm-hmm. I thought that was just like a fun little thing. But Rare actually made a bunch of games for the original Nintendo. And at that time, they only had like, I think 80 people. They were just pumping out games. It was much more about quantity, like pumping out games, making money. But when they got to the SNES, they started switching to quality over quantity, and that's when they made much more of a focus on making one really good game, and you can really see that shine through as you go from the Super Nintendo into the 64 era. They actually bought these really expensive computer stations to do the effect that Donkey Kong has. It basically was able to turn 3D characters into 2D sprites, and you pre-rendered all this stuff in the game. A lot of games render stuff as you play it, and that takes up a lot of time and like processing power. So they really pushed the SNES cartridge to its limits by using this format of running through these super heavy duty like battle stations essentially to eventually get the game. They would take like days sometimes to render these graphics.
Wow.
And like there were stories about guys coming in and like shutting off someone else's render process to start theirs because they needed theirs done in like the middle of the night.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was crazy. They way overworked on this game, but they tried so hard, and it worked out for them in the end, and I'm sure things are better, but a lot of times old game development was hell sometimes when it's rushing, and
kind of sounds like a not fun place to work. I'm not gonna lie.
It was kind of a pain, but eventually they moved out of this farmhouse they were at. They had AC units to keep these big, huge computers cold and like all this stuff. It was kind of insane. Oh my goodness. So another thing I got to mention about this, and anybody who follows video game music will recognize this name. David Wise ended up being the video game music composer and musician for Rare at the time.
And that's why it's so good.
Yes, he makes some really, really good music. He always is very good at capturing the atmosphere of a place. And since Donkey Kong Country had all these pre-rendered graphics, Wise really wanted to push the audio to be just as impressive as how it looks. So just the underwater levels, aquatic ambiance, it took him 5 weeks to compose that. That's how much time he took to make it. And it's his favorite track. But to save space on these game cartridges, he would input all this music manually.
I don't know what that means. Basically,
you could like set it like, oh man, how do you put it? Like he like hand put each note, like an MIDI. You have to click on each button for each note, for each sound channel you want. Like, wow. Do it by hand. Because like making something on a keyboard is one thing, but inputting it into digital is different. It's not as easy as it is nowadays where it's like, I just plug in my keyboard and it all works out, right? You had to click on the computer, each little square for each note you want to do, how long you want to do it. Like he input all that manually to make the music not take up as much space, but still be as amazing as it is. And Donkey Kong Country still has some of the best music out there. The Donkey Kong games in general.
Yes.
Like, and he even worked on the most recent ones. Rare didn't make the newest ones that are on like Switch and the Wii U. The Tropical Freeze one, I think, is the most recent. But David Wise did come. They had him come back and make the music for those games. And music's still good, folks. He makes some good music. He's good at his job. I'm not gonna lie.
It's always such a sweet thing to hear about somebody that loves what they do that much, that they put that much effort and time into it to make it just as good as they want.
And like video games was like starting to really explode. Like the Super Nintendo area, you had the competition with like Genesis, Sega, and all that, and like it was really starting to get more and more mainstream popular, right? Mm-hmm. And you know how people get anytime there's a new form of entertainment is, oh, that's not real art. Why waste time on it? Kids don't care. They just want to press a button and jump on a Goomba or whatever, right? But you get some of these people that like really try to put something good into it, and it works. Like, I love aquatic ambiance. It's a great soundtrack. I love there's in the second one, Donkey Kong Country Diddy Kong's Quest. There's a Sticker Brush Symphony that's really cool that I really love the jam to that. It's got almost a lo-fi feel to it, you know,
right up your
kind of
alley.
chill. It's like a lot of this like chill. It just adds to it, but like there's some real jams in it. Like right off the beginning, you get some Donkey Kong like monkey songs in it, and like I love the music. I love the style. I love the art. And the platforming's tight. It's solid. You get little animal power-ups you can ride. So you find like 3...
Oh, the rhinoceros?
Yeah, there's a rhino, there's an ostrich, there's a frog, and the parrot squawks. And like...
It's kind of nice to see it, like, just from listening to you talk, because I haven't played this game, but there's so much relative to Donkey Kong 64.
Yep, this is where it all started.
And it's nice to see that they carried so many of those fun things over to Donkey Kong 64. That's the only way I know about this stuff. Like,
yeah,
that really proves how good it was if they kept doing it that many years later.
Yeah, like, sometimes you just fall into... Like, you work hard on something because you think it's going to work, and it really pays off. And it's like, this is right. Like, I was right in my convictions to make this like this,
to
right?
Take the time on it to really push through.
Yeah, there were some people, like, years afterwards that said, oh, people only liked it because of the graphics. Or, like, there were some negative Nancy's, like, after the fact. And it kind of blows my mind. Some people even tried to say that even... like Miyamoto helped work on this and some of the level design. Like he actually suggested the ground pound for like finding secrets and stuff like that towards the end of the development cycle. But people were like, oh, he said, it wasn't that good, or like he didn't like it as much after the fact. And he's like, no, I never said that. Like, I don't know where that's coming from. Like, it's a good game. It's like a big part of our history and stuff like that. I don't know why sometimes people have to look back and be like, that wasn't as good as what it could have been. I don't know. It's like, it was really good at the time. And it honestly is a game I feel that still holds up platforming wise. They did tone down the difficulty at the request of Nintendo. They're like, they wanted it to be more accessible. And they're like, the hardcores will go through and find all the secrets. Like the secrets is where you have to do some tricks, especially in the later levels, or make a literal leap of faith into a hole, hoping there's a barrel there. And sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. But I always had a lot of fun with this series. When I bought my first console, which was a Super Nintendo, it came with Donkey Kong Country 3. I think it was like Dixie Trouble. You played as Dixie Kong and her, what was it? This little baby Kong, little beefy bangy. Yeah. It was still like really, like it was a hard game. It took a lot to get through that one. Like, but it was a lot of fun still. I have a lot of good memories of this series and Donkey Kong in general. And I'm excited for you to go back and like, let's experience the start of that current Donkey Kong that you know and love.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, not current, but yeah. The one that I do know and love.
Yeah. The one you know. The one that came out on 64 and all that fun stuff.
A million years ago.
What would you say your excitement for this one is?
I would say it's like a 7.
7?
I'm pretty interested.
Yeah. And luckily, it is on Nintendo Switch Online's SNES. So you can play it right on the Switch. Easy peasy. And no troubles. Like, it's just nice when it's that easy. That's where the easiest place you can find it right now on the Switch. I'm sure it came out for other Nintendo consoles as a virtual console download. There's a Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance that I'm actually like, I looked back at screenshots of it and I'm like, I can't believe they made it look this good on these tiny ass consoles.
Yeah.
And it's impressive, but if you're going to play it, play the Super Nintendo version, play the version that's on the Nintendo Switch Online, SNES whole package, go for it. You're not going to be disappointed. And it's nice if you want to stop, make a save state. Because that way, if you don't make it to Candy Kong, you can still pick up on the level you were at, which is a nice little touch you can do nowadays. Yeah, I remember I got irritated. There was a minecart level that I couldn't get past back in the day. I just had so much trouble. And it was right before the save spot. I die. And then you have to go back to the beginning of that world and start over. So I burn through and then I'd get stuck on that one right before the save point. And I think I like stopped playing it for 2 weeks once. And then I came back and then beat the level because that's how that works.
That's how that works.
But I'll stop taking up your time. I'll stop taking up our listeners' time. And we're going to get you in and experiencing Donkey Kong Country. The origin story.
Kong.
Donkey Kong. See you later.
You'll be saying that so much.
Hello, welcome back. After some time in the country, the Donkey Kong country.
Monkeys everywhere.
Monkeys everywhere. We have a little bit of a special guest to help out in our second half. Say hi, special guest.
Oh, well, hello.
If you may have heard one of our bonus episodes, this is our friend Joe, and he's coming in to help fill in some gaps later on.
It is a pleasure to make all of your reacquaintances.
So, Rose, I have not been able to be around to really fully witness or help.
To watch me die over and over and over again.
And I have some things I want to say about that afterwards, but let's hear your opinions and how are you feeling about it after having spent some time with it?
Well, I don't have a lot because I didn't get very far.
Yeah, that happens.
This game is an old game, and old games, like, from my experience, what I can pull from is playing the original Mario. Unless you know what you're doing and you've played it over and over again, you are going to die and die and die and die. And I started this up and immediately, like, lost all my lives. Done. Restart. Immediately lose them all again. Restart. I restarted this game so many times. So I think I got, like, to the second page. I don't even know if it's the second level. I barely know how this game works, I think.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was so much tougher than I thought.
I think we talked about in the first half how you have your experience missing from the SNES generation of console,
and
right?
apparently I did not get any of those skills in life.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think about this is you're missing some of those key skills that kind of translate up along a lot of the games. And Joe, you brought this up that maybe I should have had her play Super Mario World first, because that is a very good, it's a little easier of a jumping point into basic SNES platformer controls as opposed to Donkey Kong Country. But you love Donkey Kong 64 so much that I was like, oh, she'll like it. And like, I think the aesthetic, the music, the noise, like all the little stuff is really cool.
Yeah, so for me, like, that was the best part that I got to take away was seeing, again, like you showed me at the beginning of The Legend of Zelda, and it really was nice to see the beginning of Donkey Kong and how similar it was to Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah.
Like, everything that I love about Donkey Kong 64 is in Donkey Kong Country. It just started off with all these good things.
Yep.
Like the music and the characters having, like, Candy Kong and Funky Kong and Cranky Kong.
Yeah, Cranky. I love Cranky.
But even, like, I didn't know that the Rhino was in this, and I got to ride the Rhino as Donkey Kong, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, that wasn't just a 64 thing.
Nope.
Like, this is right away from the beginning. And in this one, I even got to ride the swordfish, which I didn't know was a thing.
Yep.
And that was a cool surprise.
The swordfish was my favorite back in the day.
Yeah, because he can attack the enemies, and you're just like, the controls when you're on the swordfish are amazing. You're just, instead of swimming around, you're just zooming, and you can attack things and move away so quickly and move around with ease. And that was like a nice little bonus. So I can see why this game is super fun, because I didn't even get to do, I think there's more, like a frog and an ostrich. And
Yep, the 4 animals that are in the original are the rhino, the ostrich, the frog, and the swordfish. There's also Squawks, the bird. There's a little parrot that can like, and I the hard part is, I've said this before, I mix up the Donkey Kong countries, the 3 that are on the SNES.
Sure.
And it's hard because I know there's like levels in some of them where Squawks shoots out like a nut and you use that to attack enemies. And then there's some where Squawks is just a way to like float and fly through the level. So I can't remember how much of it is in this game sometimes, but I just know that like I've really enjoyed it over the different games.
I can see why. I just didn't have the drive to beat my head against the wall.
Yeah.
And we talked about that too. Like, when you're kids, you're more willing to do that for much, much longer. And I also had the bug of, all right, I just tried for a half hour and died so many times. I guess I'm going to play Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope now.
Yeah,
like,
that is such a good way to put it. And like, we were replaying it right before we started recording, you know, getting a little refresher for people who haven't played it recently.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm on the, like, I think I'm somewhere on the ice and snow level on my own game. And even in that one, I ran into a level, like, it's just, you get like the minecart level is the most famous one of like, you're beating your head against this level, or like some of the barrel shooting levels are really hard to time it out right, and it can feel very frustrating. But as a kid, you're like, I'm gonna get that, and I guess that's just like, it's like Dark Souls. I'm gonna figure this out. And on the snow level, I was so stuck, and then I made a mistake, and then I found the cheat barrel that just skips all the hard.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they did this. Here's a cheat barrel that, it's like getting the P power up in Super Mario 3. You just skip the hard part of the level, and it's like, I forgot these. This is why I was so good at this game. I just skipped the hard part. Sometimes I figured it out.
I think that is kind of the big difference between retro gaming and modern gaming, is that with modern gaming, if you come across something that you don't have the ability or the patience to sit through and try and defeat, you can go off and find some other part of the game that you can go do instead and come back to it.
Yeah.
A game like DKC, you don't have that. When you get to a point that you can't beat, guess what? You get to smash your head into it over and over and over until you beat it or until you're out of lives. And there's a part of that I miss that in games. Like, we just played this morning for what, maybe a half an hour, just kind of picking it back up. I want to go down there and grind that minecart level so bad.
Right? I'm gonna get this.
Through it. I did not, but it was just, it puts that itch in you of, I can do this. I know I can do this. I made a mistake. I have to do it again. I made a mistake. I have to do it again. And that's something that's really missing from today's games.
I think the most
that
frustrating
sense of
thing
accomplishment when you finally do it.
Yeah, it feels that. Like I said, that's why I like Dark Souls. You finally beat that boss. Like, it's that good feeling. And I think Dark Souls gives that sense of accomplishment is even bigger when you play those type of games than in Donkey Kong. But there's still, it's that feeling when you get past it. And the stupid thing is, it's like, I beat that minecart level a lot easier the last time I did it. And this time I go through and it's like, I'm just having trouble today. And the time I finally go through it, perfect run. Don't get hit at all. Don't make a single mistake. And all the times I get so close making one mistake. Oh.
But on a scale from 1 to 10, when you got through that on your perfect run, you got to the end and you go, I think there's one more enemy before the end. And as you say that, there he is. Hop over him, hit the finish. That 1 to 10. How good did that feel?
That felt good. It's like, it was like my old kid self just kicked in and it's like, oh, I know this is happening. Like, I just know. You can't trick me, Donkey Kong. Oh, yeah. I think it is a bummer that Rose didn't get to experience much of it.
I would slowly get like a little bit further and a little bit further, but I still didn't get very far. But I thought, hey, Joe's here. He knows this game super well. It's going to be great to have him explain like what he thinks about the game, what's good about it, what's not. I mean, we all know, and you mentioned this in the first part, the music's fantastic.
It's wonderful.
Iconic. Everybody recognizes it. Of course, that's enjoyable. And the graphics, to me, look really, really good for an old game. And I think you said something about that, too, didn't you?
Yeah, artistically, the game is fantastic. But here's a question for you, Rose. Mm-hmm. Rose, 29 years ago, she would have sat there for hours and hours and tried to get through those levels, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Now you have so many different options for games that you can play that, you know, maybe you don't want to sit there for 20 hours and try and bash your head into that level.
I think more than anything, it's like limited time.
Yep.
Having a job,
adulthood,
adult responsibilities,
being a parent, having a house that I have to clean, like it's more that takes up so much time and we've talked about that before. You have to be so picky as you get older about what you want to put your time into.
Yes, exactly.
You have to really. We've talked about that so much. You have to love it so much to want to do it.
Your recreational hours are limited, and you have to be picky on how you spend them.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, there's so many more options. And, you talk about how you miss some of the challenge from these old games. You play the old Super Nintendo games and regular Nintendo games. And I think part of the reason why... there was a period where stuff got too easy, and they've kind of come around that bump to like challenging but fulfilling. Now you're seeing that a lot more often. And I think that just came about because all of us that were kids that grew up, we were purchasing that stuff. We got older, we have less time, but we're the people who have the money to buy this stuff. Mm-hmm. You need to make sure that it's something we want to spend our time on, and we're not going to just feel like I spent money on a game I can't even play, anymore. And I can see why, like, when this stuff first came out, like, my dad couldn't play Donkey Kong Country. Like, he was playing Pac-Man, and don't get me wrong, my dad is an excellent Pac-Man player. OG Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man, he will rock the world. Because as a kid, he was...
Go, Sheldon.
Yeah. As a kid, he was pumping quarters into those machines. He got an Atari, and that's the games he had. But, like... you skip 2 generations, you're older, and then all of a sudden you're trying to play this game, and it's like, what's happening? So I can see how that'd be difficult. But playing this, I was like replaying it. I'm like, oh yeah, this game is a lot harder in some ways. It's more like you come up against a wall every so often, and you have to overcome it, right?
There's a learning curve with the movement of them too.
Yeah,
and they move slightly differently than each other. And just how you bounce off of an enemy. I died a few times just landing on one of those crocodiles and accidentally like not pulling my trigger back or my joystick back, because if you just bounce and keep going, like he will fly over off of a tree.
Yeah.
Like there's momentum to it.
Yep.
You've used that word before. So just learning that kind of stuff, like what's going to kill me and what's not, it's hard.
Yeah.
I think part of that too, that's where Matt and I are talking about kind of the SNES generation, because if you've played Nintendo, you're kind of used to the side-scrolling platformer style games.
Yep.
But going from 8-bit to 16-bit and having the ability for the game creators to have 16 different processes happening at once, they put a lot of that into your character movement.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of additional character movement things that when you played Super Nintendo, you got the hang of, and that's where I suggested Super Mario World, because they took full advantage of that right out of the gate.
Well, I mean, Nintendo's always good about getting the most out of their console with their games, because like they made it, they're good at it. I'm reminded of, you made me play that Tom Sawyer game for the regular Nintendo, right? That game ain't easy. That game's pretty dang hard, but you love that one and are willing to play it. And I think part of that is that nostalgia is, as a kid, you beat your head against the wall. You know you got pretty far. You've witnessed it being beat, or you beat it yourself.
Yeah.
And when you come to adult, you're like, this game is tough, but you still want to keep playing it because it's like, it kind of gives you that good feeling. So I have that with this Donkey Kong Country. You don't. You're learning it completely from scratch.
Right.
So it's so much more frustrating than it is for me, because I'm like, I know I can get past this. You're like, I don't know if I ever will. Like, it's a bad feeling, right?
I think it's just, I missed out on it, and it's going to be a skill that I'd really have to work at.
Yeah.
Making, really, really work at that skill.
I will say another thing about it. There are a lot of Super Nintendo games that you can go back and play, and they still look visually good.
Yeah, this one looks really good.
Yeah, they hold up.
I disagree. I think that the art in DKC is fantastic, but as far as like pixelation and translation to a high definition game, I think that it looks very, not crude, but very rough.
It is rougher. I think you run into... This is the same thing you run into with old games. They were made for CRT TVs. Now, they have the CRT filters, which help ease it on high-definition TVs, but that's all it does. It eases it. It doesn't give that soft glow where everything kind of fuses together how it was made to be. And that's the thing. That's the hardest thing about these old games, is it's very hard now to experience them the way they were meant to be played. And... their controls, the gameplay is always going to work, but how it looks and how you felt it looked as a kid is hard. The 3D pre-rendering thing they did with Donkey Kong was wonderful, and it still looks good. The next ones look better, they get better at it, but I think it's hard sometimes to see how rough some games can look, especially like it can look so pixelated and jagged. I think going back to like 64, that's a rougher jump.
That is rough.
Like, but going back to the old 8-bit, and stuff, it's a lot easier.
Do you have a shining example of a SNES game that you think looks good?
I'm just thinking like when you guys played Goof Troop.
Yeah.
I thought that looked very smooth and the animations were clean, and I felt that playing Donkey Kong Country, like when an enemy or when you jumped, it was almost like it was hard to track where you were going to land and where things were happening.
But also, what kind of TV were we playing on?
We played that on a CRT.
Yes,
that is
exactly.
correct.
You made sure that we played that way.
Yep. So I think that's just that experience. And Donkey Kong does have its own feel, like how you move, how you bounce off enemies. When you roll into certain enemies, you can knock them out, but then that accelerates you. So like you can get a string of enemies, you can wipe out about 4 as long as you can roll into all of them. But there's enemies you can't roll into, enemies you can't jump on. And, there's so much of this game that is just learning by repetition. Like, oh, that kills me. Don't do that anymore. Oh, I gotta go faster to get across this jump. I gotta jump up.
It is a lot of repetition,
and
that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't hate that. It's just that thing of, wow, this is going to take a while.
Yes.
I was surprised at how challenging it was, and I was like, I'm not going to get very far. I knew right away. I was like, oh no, I am not going to make it through this game. Not even halfway.
And that's the hard part. I think it's been a little difficult because generally I like to be around to assist with like, hey,
if
this is what you
had been around, I would have been like, we're doing 2-player co-op.
Yeah,
like,
that would have been
that's
fun.
the only way I'm going to see more of this game.
Which is fun because you can do each person's one monkey or 2 people control. I think you get alternate color skins, you can play as, which is kind of fun as well. Yeah, I think that's the only bad thing. So I want to get, like, I know you didn't get very far, but I'm curious about what your rating actually, you feel your rating is.
Just because I couldn't make it, like, I know that I still saw enough to know, like, this is a good game.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was really exciting to see how much of Donkey Kong 64 was from this. Like, it all really... They did a good job. Like, I love Donkey Kong 64,
it's like
so
looking
I know
at a blueprint.
yeah, exactly. I know if I kept playing this one, I would love it just as much. And it, like I said, there's a difference in the movement between Diddy and Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
and,
they're unique.
Like, that was something that I loved about Donkey Kong 64, because you got to play as Lanky Kong and Tiny Kong, and they all move different.
Yep.
And the music is good. Just those extra things, like there's secret places that you can find
everywhere,
little mini games, and like riding the rhino and the swordfish. Like, I know this is a good game. Mm-hmm. It's just hard because that's the way games were. Yeah,
the time you got to put into it to really fully experience it is tough, especially when we got so many things we like to do to put, like, not even just games to play, like there's stuff we want to watch, there's stuff we want to read, there's projects we want to work on, you know.
I just don't really feel like I can give it a fair number. I mean, I guess I'd say 8. Like, I know that it's good, but I didn't get to experience it a lot.
I feel like you are very good about, like, hey, what I've experienced, I know I personally haven't got as much out of it, but I do know there's a good game here.
Definitely.
And I respect that, because trust me, when the first time I ever played Dark Souls, I got barely past the tutorial level. You were there, Joe. He witnessed me die in the tutorial level, and like I think I made it to the Minotaur boss with him, and we just beat our head against that. Just like you, yeah. I didn't get past the Minotaur boss.
I remember making the 15 to 20 minute drive to the grocery store to the video game rental so that we could get it and bring it back to the house and be unable to get past the first part of the
game. We were like, hey, everyone says this is so hard, we got to try it. And like, if you would have asked me my rating then, I'm like, it is too hard, I don't like it. And then after the years went by, I went back and tried it, and I fell in love with this series. And it's like, once I finally put the time in to get it, I loved it. Same thing with Monster Hunter. Once I put that time in to finally like get that epiphany moment, I love it. Donkey Kong Country, do we have the time right now to play this old game? That's great, don't get me wrong. Probably not, because we got so much to keep up on.
There are some games that you can decide you're going to commit to the game and put 6 to 8 hours into it and the game's complete.
Yeah.
And those are great and wonderful. Dark Souls is not one of those games.
No.
Monster Hunter is not one of those games.
No.
Donkey Kong Country is not one of those games.
I think once you get it, Donkey Kong Country is one of those games. But the time it takes to learn everything, figure everything out, because like you do have to learn the levels, you do have to learn the mechanics, and it gets easier to recognize what you're coming up against. But like that stop-go level, you didn't make it to the minecarts, right?
No, I didn't.
So there's a minecart level, super hard. You got to time all your jumps, and then right after this, there's a stop-go level. There's these hulking beast crocodiles that you can't kill, will instantly kill you if you touch them. So you have to hit these barrels that change from go to stop, and when it stops, they curl up into little balls, and you can run by them. They're harmless. You got to keep hitting those stop barrels on time, otherwise you're screwed. And it's like, they give you like a hint at the mechanic at first, and then but if you're not ready for it, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go through the level.
You're gonna lose a lot
at
of
my
lives
normal pace. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose a few lives, and then it's not the roughest introduction of new things, but it is surprising when it happens.
Yeah.
And then like, okay, I got to burn a couple lives to figure this out, and that's Donkey Kong Country, baby.
But I'd kind of like to hear like Joe's overall score and opinion.
Yeah, how do you feel about this game? Looking back, reminding yourself today, like what do you think? What do you think your rating was back when you first played it compared to what you feel like your rating would be now? That's a good way to put it. Out of 10.
Okay. So there's really no easy way to answer this. No. And before I do, I'm going to preface this by saying, I don't know if you've done this before. I don't think you have, because I haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. I would like to see you put together can't call it Twitter anymore, put together an X post of all of her game rating scores
Oh yeah,
from like 10 to 0. Just put all the games together in a single post with her scores in them. I think that would be really cool to look at and go over. Yeah,
I think there's a couple we might have accidentally missed sometimes.
I think we got it.
I think we did it on the next episode. We realized we didn't put a rating.
Yeah, there was one where we put it on the next episode. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to rate that. It was this.
I really should.
I think that would be cool just to see a compilation of all the games you guys have done. What were her favorites? What were her least favorites? I think we all know what's going to be at the bottom, but
yeah.
Far Cry 3.
Okay, I'll take it.
I really fucking hate that game.
So, Donkey Kong Country to me, as a kid growing up with an SNES, when you talk side-scrolling platformers, the two that seem to pop into everybody's mind are Mario and Sonic.
Yeah.
Mario is geared around almost kind of like a slow-paced, deliberate precision concept where you're not running real fast, you can't jump real high, but you need to be precise in your actions and your decisions in order to get through the level.
Mostly about platforming, right? Jumping and hitting your platforms, hitting your levels, not falling through. Yep.
Whereas Sonic was all about you're going to be moving at turbo speed.
Yep.
You just need to get generally right with your decisions and your timing, and you're going to make it to the next platform you need to be on and move on. Donkey Kong Country is the perfect middle blend of the two.
Yes, I would say that.
And so of those three, I was a DKC fan growing up, more so than Mario, more so than Sonic. And I love Mario and Sonic. They are fantastic games, but the actual mechanics of Donkey Kong Country as far as movement and jumping and everything like that go, it's perfect. For what it is, I think it's perfect. And honestly, my score has not changed at all from when I was a kid until now, just playing it earlier, because artistically, it's beautiful. It makes you feel like you're in a jungle. And like I told you when I was playing, like I really want to go play some Crash Bandicoot now.
Yeah,
I love that vibe. That middle 90s video game jungle vibe is fantastic.
I mean, the music puts you there.
The music is wonderful. They did a great job on that. You had some interesting nuggets of information on that too.
Yeah, I talked about that in the first half, how, like how long he took to write the aquatic ambient song and like how hard he worked to put this music as best he could. Like he put it in the notes so it would take up less space on the cartridge because they packed this baby full.
Yeah, it's one of those games that I remember as a kid sitting down, and each stage, there were, the first couple that I could get through with, one or two failures or none. But as it got further on, each stage, it's exactly what you were talking about. You learn the mechanic, and then you start to learn the stage. And by the time you've completed it, you're probably on your 30th or 40th or 50th run through the stage. Yep. You know the entire stage by heart. It's all not making any mistakes.
Yeah.
And I really miss video games that treat it that way, where here are 20 different actions that you need to perform in a row, and if you get one wrong, you get to start over.
But don't worry, we'll give you a one mistake mulligan every so often.
You get your switch to Diddy.
Yeah.
Yep. So, having said that, all told, I'm going to give DKC a solid 9.25.
9.25. Oh, we got our first 0.25.
That's a pretty good score.
Yeah.
It's better than just a 9. I can't give it a 9.5.
Yeah, I would put it right at an 8 or a 9 myself. Mm-hmm. It's how do I think the series as a whole I would give a 9, because like I said, I mix all these together. Diddy Kong's Quest is amazing, and I played so much of I think it was like Dixie's Double Trouble or something was the third one title, and I always thought it was interesting. You get Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, and then the second one, Donkey Kong gets kidnapped by K. Rool, and you got to play as Diddy Kong and his girl Dixie. And then Dixie has a cool hover effect with her hair. And then you go to the third one, guess who's gone? Diddy Kong's gone. This time you get Dixie Kong and the cousin, what was the cousin? It was like a baby. It was in a onesie, but it was big like Donkey Kong is, so it was really strong. And then, but they added a mechanic in the second one that you could throw your partner up on ledges to like get to ledges. Well, in the third one they had it. Well, okay, Dixie Kong can't throw the baby as far because the baby's big and the baby can throw Dixie Kong way farther. So it really made it so it wasn't so much that getting the other both monkeys as a power up or a mulligan, as you needed both to access everything on the level. So like it made it even more so that you need to play this right. I can just like see all the levels, and I love the pirate theming of all the crocodiles, and it's so fun. Like, oh, here.
That's another part too. As far as villains go for Nintendo, I mean Bowser is Bowser,
yeah,
but King K. Rool is right up there as far as awesome villains.
He's so funny.
I think you get Bowser. Bowser is obsessive, right? Like he's obsessive
he's
bad
a
guy. Yeah, but he's not like fully bad. He's just like really. He wants Princess Peach. He wants to marry Princess Peach and take over. That's all he thinks about, and he does whatever he does. He makes mistakes, but he accepts that. King K. Rool is just kind of crazy. He's like the Joker of the Mario, like wild. Donkey Kong universe.
I just want chaos.
Yeah, he's just like, I want bananas and chaos, like, and I don't know why. Even like you watch, like, have you ever watched the old CG cartoon? Do you remember the Donkey Kong cartoon?
No, I remember it, but I don't remember watching it.
It was so. It is a fever dream. I'm gonna say that this show was a fever dream, and like. Donkey Kong was super weird. Everyone was super weird, but King K. Rool was even crazier. Like it's a thing. Like if you really want to experience that period in history, go check it out because it is just wild and bonkers. And I watched a lot of it for a while, but I don't think I could go back and watch it now. It was so weird. Do you have? Either of you have any closing thoughts or comments you want to talk about Donkey Kong Country about? Anything, any last words? Nintendo,
give us a full remake, please.
It would be hard because Rare did that. Honestly, if you want to experience some really good Donkey Kong, the retro Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, both really amazing Donkey Kong games, and they had the musician come back and write the music for that. And guess what he can do when he's not operating on a Super Nintendo? Really good stuff. That jams are good in that game.
Something that I kind of stumbled across just doing a little bit of research for this.
Yep.
I don't know if you're aware. I believe it was a fan created, but it's called Donkey Kong Trilogy.
Oh, really?
Look into it.
I'll have to look into it after this. All right, Rose.
What?
You know what? Don't try to fake me out. Just do it. We got somebody here. You can't smooth your transition into it.
I was trying to decide if I should or not because this one's rough.
Do it.
What do you call Donkey Kong's thick sister?
I have no idea.
Oh my god.
Come on, think about it, Joe. What would Donkey Kong's thick sister's name be?
Donkey Thong.
But Donkey Kong.
But Donkey Kong.
But
Oh my goodness.
That one felt gross to say, but it was funny.
Yeah. That one was a little gross. But, I think the setup is almost funnier than the punchline. His thick sister. I mean, thick. I guess Donkey Kong's sister probably would be thick.
But it's also concerning that somebody's dreaming about Donkey Kong having a thick sister, so maybe that's why it.
Well,
so
I mean, come on, they have Candy Kong in there, and she's pretty.
I guarantee you, there's a 0.5 terabyte of digital artwork on the internet.
Oh, don't Rule 30 for it. Skip that. Skip it. All right,
I do have one last thing.
Yeah.
And it's not about Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
it's about Mario and Rabbids.
Oh, honorable mention. Okay,
because
sure.
We were talking about how hold on. Oh, yeah, we were talking about how there's no Koopa Troopas in that game.
Yeah.
And I started playing again, and literally right after I said that same day.
Yep.
I got Bowser. And you know what his special ability is?
Summons a bunch of Koopas.
He summons mechanical Koopa troopers that run out and blow up enemies.
That's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool that they.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I know. I that's interesting because that was like one of the weapons you could get in the first one was like a remote control car that you set it down and it'd go towards the nearest enemy and blow up. So that's what these do,
That's what Bowser's Koopa
Bowser has
do.
that. That's actually really cool. I really like that.
So I lied last time. They are in that game.
She lied. But it was a good setup.
It was. I'm done now. That's it. Oh, and I learned armadillos in Donkey Kong Country really suck.
Yeah.
Armadillos are mean, nasty little guys in Donkey Kong Country.
They're rude, crude dudes.
Killed me so many times.
I know. You got these big bipedal crocodiles. What kills me? A freaking
The armadillo.
accurate ass armadillo. I mean, it's a big one, but still. I've just been playing Tears of the Kingdom when I can, so I mean, it's a great game. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say about that.
What have you been playing lately?
Diablo 4.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know that I've really touched anything in the last month since that came out.
Yeah, just Diablo 4. Have you been playing with Amanda?
Yep.
Okay, so I hear that playing by yourself is okay, but playing with someone makes the experience so much better.
Playing with someone in Diablo is the only proper way to play it.
I mean,
we're
honestly,
having
yes.
a blast. I don't know if either of you two have played it at all yet.
I haven't touched Diablo 4 yet.
The changes that they made to it are superb.
Yeah.
It is very, very different from D2 or D3. It is just a massive overworld. There's not different acts that take you to different worlds.
Yep.
It's just one big world.
I heard that. That's what makes it really fun. Yep. What about the most recent nerf patch? How do you feel about that?
I don't really care yet because we're only about halfway through the leveling process with everything. That we've had
so it hasn't really affected you yet.
Exactly.
Yep. I see that happens to me. Some people will come out and be like, "What the hell? Why'd you do that?" And I'm like, I just started the game. It's like, I don't notice anything different.
Yeah, we haven't spent 100 hours grinding for the gear that we wanted,
prestiging.
and now it's nerfed and not worth anything. So now we get to do that grind all over again.
Oh yeah,
but that's Blizzard for you.
Yeah, yep, right. Jeez, yeah, it seems like a odd choice for them, honestly, even to just nerf the whole game. I think from what I've read, it feels like they're prolonging how long it takes to get to endgame. And this was the quick, easy way to do it. But I don't know. They'll probably roll back some of the changes if they get too much, backlash. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not playing it yet. I'm sure I'll play it eventually. It's on my list of how many things I'm trying to do.
Things to do.
Oh my goodness. Too many things to do. But I want to say thank you to our listeners. Thank you for tuning in, checking out. I hope you enjoy our special guest and some new insights.
Thank you to our special guest for being here and helping out because I needed some expertise on this side.
And thank you to Brother Ray for our caricatures. I love them. I enjoy them. And they're my favorite. They're always my favorite.
Thank you for the music.
You're welcome. And I think that's it. No, I got to start with, I'm Matt.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Co-ople Mode +1. You keep gaming with your bestie. Ta-ta!